What is a data breach? How are they caused? What are the implications of personal information being stolen? And most importantly, how much money do they end up costing companies and consumers like us? We'll cover all of that today. Welcome to the Great World channel. Glad you could join us. Before we get started, let's talk about what a data breach really is. Any external breach of personal information stored in the digital world can be considered a data breach. But for most companies, a data breach is a major security incident in which sensitive and protected data is accessed, viewed, or stolen by an unauthorized individual. This can include personal information such as names, addresses, social security numbers, and credit card information. It's important for companies who store this data to be responsible with it. But when that doesn't happen, it leads to major costs, sometimes even in the billions. Today, we'll take a closer look at one of the biggest data hacks in history and the events that followed. In 2017, Equifax, one of the three major credit reporting agencies in the United States, experienced a devastating data breach that affected 147 million consumers. Hackers were able to gain access to social security numbers, birth dates, and addresses. They also accessed credit card numbers for 209,000 consumers and dispute documents with personal information for 182,000 consumers. The hackers were able to gain access to Equifax's databases in March of 2017, and the leak went unnoticed for months. It wasn't until July that the company publicly announced the data breach, and even claimed that they were hacked between mid-May and July of 2017. It was revealed later that the hackers had been inside of the company's systems as early as March. But that begs the question, how are these hackers even able to gain access to all of that data, especially from a company that large? They did it by exploiting a weakness in Equifax's website software, known as the Apache Struts vulnerability. This vulnerability had been identified, and a patch was created to fix it 2 months before the hack. So how are the hackers able to still use this vulnerability? Because Equifax never applied the patch to fix it, the hackers easily gained access to Equifax's databases and quickly control-saved everything they could. The reaction of the company was met with understandable criticism. Many felt that Equifax had not taken adequate measures to protect consumers' personal information, and that the company's response to the breach was slow and inadequate. In the days following the public announcement of the hack, the company's stock fell 33%, and their CEO Richard Smith stepped down and retired. The financial impact of this data breach was significant. Equifax initially estimated the cost to be around $400 million. However, as the investigation progressed and the true extent of the data breach became clear, they realized how much they really had to pay. In total, Equifax has reported that the data breach cost over $1.5 billion. This cost can be broken down into several categories. First, there are the direct costs of the data breach. These include things like the cost of notification, credit monitoring, and legal fees. Equifax spent $1.25 billion on direct costs related to the data breach. Next, there are the indirect costs. These include things like lost customers, decreased revenue, and damage to the company's reputation and brand. Equifax has reported that they lost approximately $150 million in revenue due to the data breach. Finally, the long-term expenses. Equifax is still paying the cost of credit monitoring for affected customers, as well as the cost of any lawsuits or settlements that may arise in the future. They have $690 million set aside to cover the costs of any future litigation. It's important to note that the financial impact of a data breach is not limited to the company that experienced the breach. Consumers bear the financial burden as well. Countless people had to pay for credit monitoring, freeze their credit, and some even became victims of identity theft. This goes to show how important it is for companies to be responsible with their personal data. Since the Equifax breach, there have been several other high-profile data breaches at other companies, including Yahoo and Marriott. These incidents have further emphasized the need for companies to take data security seriously and to have robust systems in place to protect sensitive information. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. We have another video on how the Ever Given incident changed global shipping, and lots of new content coming soon. Until next time.